There's been research that tells us that happiness has three components. It's 50% genes, it is 10% circumstances, and it is 40% actions. Now, if you were dealt a bad hand, a friend of mine is an ophthalmologist. I'm Indian, obviously. I have an ophthalmologist friend. And he told me, he's like, some people are just dealt a bad hand when it comes to health. They come in, they just have bad eyes. It's not their fault. That's just the way that it is. But if you're on the cusp, then 40 percentage points is a lot. If some tips and tricks in your circumstances can take you from 35% to 75%, that is a very big deal. Because sometimes you don't need to do something different. You can continue to do what you're doing and do it differently. There's a big difference. Do something different or do what you're doing differently. You might not need to quit P&G in Cincinnati and move to Los Angeles and be a stand-up comic. That might not be the only way to find happiness. You might not need an overhaul, you just need a couple of tweaks. Because it's our impulse a lot of the time when something isn't working to swing the pendulum completely the other way and say, screw this, it's not working, I'm taking another path. You don't necessarily have to do that. And I remember working at Procter & Gamble, Punjabis and Gujaratis, P&G, the Peej. And I remember that one of the internal mottos was, make a little, sell a little, learn a lot. And I loved that. I loved that idea. So sometimes it can be illustrated in a different way. Epicurus in the 4th century apparently said, I wasn't there, if thou wilt make a man happy, add not unto his riches, but take away from his desires. It was also sung in the 1940s by two men who sang a song called You Have to Accentuate the Positive, Eliminate the Negative. And the rest of that is you've got to spread joy up to the maximum, bring gloom down to the minimum. They're giving us a formula. They may not have realized it. And it was also illustrated by 4 guys in the 1990s called Boys to Men, one of my favorite first groups. I am a 90s kid all the way, so I love this song. And I'm not going to try to sing this because it's way below my octaves, but they sang, the good times that made us laugh outweigh the bad. Now, why am I giving you all of these different quotes? Because it turns out there is a happiness formula beyond the makeup of it, and I'm giving you the addition. I'm now going to give you the division. There is a happiness quotient, okay? Now, this is mine, and this is what I came up with. I said happiness is your perception of reality, not only reality, but also your perception of reality over your assumptions. Now, I want to be very, very careful because I once had this as expectations. And somebody goes, don't put expectations because then you're basically telling people to lower their expectations. And people always say, you want to be happy, lower your expectations. Yeah, but if you have a happiness set point and an expectation set point, that's hard to do sometimes. I'll give you some tips and tricks for it, but you essentially have to increase the numerator and decrease the denominator, right? That's pretty simple, very simple math. Even a comedian who hasn't done a differential equation in a long time can remember a very, very simple formula like this of increasing the numerator and decreasing the denominator. Back to Ernest Hemingway. I love this man. He said, know when to stop. He would actually literally stop in the middle of a sentence so he knew where to pick it up the next day. You could do that. You could do that when you're writing a recommendation or a report or a letter or anything like that. You may not be writing the old man in the sea, but you could use this when you're writing your next memo. Just start the next section and you'll return with a lot of momentum, a lot of energy. And, as far as picking things up where they left off, I always found, at P&G, people were great about this. Instead of asking, how was your weekend? They would say, how was your daughter's soccer match on Saturday afternoon? They remembered that, from Friday to Monday, and that was a really great way to build relationships, to keep that momentum going from one week to the other. It was way more effective. I was single, so they were like, who was your designated driver on Saturday night? That was more my question that was directed my way. I didn't have a daughter at that time, still don't, that I know of. But at any rate, I do have a son, though, a 3-year-old son.